Welcome back to the big issue. We are trying to make sense of the labor agitation on the teaching front. I have Mr. Senyo Ajabing, he's a labor analyst. He will put everything in context when I'm done. So Mr. Ajabing, just have patience with me whilst I deal with Dr. Edward Kwapong, Chief Executive for Wages and Salaries Commission, who's been explaining their side of the story. Unfortunately, we don't have the NLC here. They've been fingered severally by both the UG-UTAG President, Dr. Samuel Nkumban, and Zakaria Mohammed, National Chair, Senior Staff Association, Universities of Ghana. So, Dr. Kwapong, back to you. You've explained the UTAG side of things a bit.
Except to say that by way of showing good faith, even when we were unwilling to touch the base pay or their salary structure, we said, well, why don't we explore the possibility of increasing the level of research allowance so that it will cushion them against the perceived hardships or the apparent hardships. So we drew up a four-year roadmap where we were moving the rate from a certain amount, which I do not want to mention on air,
Certainly.
to a significant amount by 2014. And so we were, 2024, when we hope they will also show goodwill. But unfortunately, the usual approach, democracy, let us go back to our constituents and explain to them. We gave them 2 hours. We stayed. The minister,
2 hours?
Yeah, the minister stayed put in the conference room. They went back.
But still is enough.
Oh, no, virtual. They said virtual, they could reach out to the various chairmen in the zones or in the regions, which they did. They came back and said, unfortunately, they don't have a consensus on the matter. And so, therefore, they wouldn't agree, which we found to be very...
but sitting here, I must say, 2 hours is not enough time.
No, they requested for the 2 hours.
Let me clarify this. We have selected 12 people who are on the negotiating committee on the side of UTAG. And then we have a national executive committee, which is made up of 4 reps of all the universities, public universities. And so when the proposal was made, we said that we needed to meet with the executive committee of UTAG, which is the elected officers of all the campuses, and to say to them that this is the proposal that had been brought. And at that meeting, which was via Zoom, we agreed that the proposition is fine. To make it appealing to our members, let it begin with effect from this year. Government will not have that. And so even then, even if government was to say that we would want it to begin with effect from this year, 2021, it's a 3-year roadmap, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And we say that let it be effective 2021. And then we can take it back to our general membership for consideration. And that was not acceptable on the side of government. It will not begin 2021, and they will not give us the time to go back to our general membership. And like I said in the beginning, you can send me somebody to the market. I don't get what the person wants, and I won't go back to the person to say that I didn't get what you wanted. This is what I got. Would you like it?
Okay. Point well made.
Unfortunately, we did not impose the 2 hours on them. They, in their own wisdom, said, we need 2 hours. We are going to use technology, reach out to them, and come back. When they came back, they said no. They didn't give any precondition. It was in the course of the conversation that they said, oh, are we starting this year? And we said, oh, in the course of the negotiations, before we signed up the MOU, we had agreed that instructions had been given by finance to pay the current rate for this year, which they accepted. And then we all agreed to set up a standing committee to look at all outstanding issues. So indeed, they have not shown sufficient good faith with government.
Okay. Now let's deal with Zacharias' issue. Yes. Now, the first point they have is a problem with your organization. So this one, you should answer it. So according to them, you failed to communicate feedback on their counter proposal to government. We had a deadline of what, Wednesday? 7th yes. July. That was last month. You did not do that. They suspended their strike action on 11th June on a promise you made to them.
Yes.
But they didn't hear from you again.
Yes. Like I said, in industrial relations, apart from the formal communication, you know, black and white, at times we speak to them.
Yes.
And so when we couldn't meet the deadline of the 7th, we indicated that the following week we were going to meet them. And quickly we wrote to that effect. Zach, you remember? We wrote inviting you for a meeting. All right?
Now you give deadlines and you keep extending them. Your deadlines are never deadlines.
And even if... Okay.
And then I'm saying this, that at times we need to clear certain issues with our principals. And when the principals have not given you a clear indication of what they are capable of allowing you to mention, you don't rush ahead of them to mention figures, and then in the end they will ask you, but who gave you the mandate? So at times you are careful how you proceed. And you know, government machinery is very bureaucratic. When we write, at times it takes, even a letter from one agency to another department can take like 4 days before the officer, the schedule officer, looks at it. So we have been explaining this to them. I keep calling my good friend Zach. He promises calling me back and he doesn't call, but well, it's part of
Zach, you can respond to that one.
No. Yes, but basically, apart from not engaging them regularly, if I should admit that, or state that without admitting, there is this matter of non-basic allowance, which they have been pushing for. Originally, they were not entitled to the interim market premium. But then when they said their counterparts in other institutions were benefiting, we were able to convince government to say, well, let us extend it to them. And we've given them a whopping 8% for starters. That they say no. And for fear that other unions will jump on the bandwagon, we even changed the name to, you know, University Senior Staff Allowance. And what government is prepared to offer now is 8%. And I think I'll use this platform to appeal to him and his members to accept that for starters, and then with time as we engage. You know, negotiations, it's a process rather than an event. So we will keep talking, we will keep pushing and see what we get for them going forward. They're also throwing in something that is to do with hazard and research allowance for their members in the laboratories and all that. We have not said no, but we are saying that at the point when we were introducing the single spine pay policy, we conducted a job evaluation of all jobs. And at times, the environment in which we work is taken into account in scoring the job. So if you don't take care, you'll be doing double counting. So from the point of view of government, then go back to the job evaluation and let's see what outcomes will be reached. And then we will take it up from there. So for me, with this, we thought we could make progress, sign off, so their members can at least benefit from those that we have agreed upon, and then move on.
All right. Zach, your quick response, then I go to Mr. Jabing.
Thank you so much. If I get it right, what Dr. Kwapong sought to say when he was explaining to Doc that the reason for terming the market premium as interim market premium was to enable the government to do proper market survey. You heard him say that.
Labor market survey.
Labor market survey.
Yes.
So do I take it that senior staff of all universities are victims of improper market survey that was conducted by government? Because even in his own definition, it wasn't proper. And then you have determined and ruled out that of the senior staff cadre. And then the business of you taking those of our colleagues in hospitals and, for instance, if I move from biodiversity, where I work in UDS, you see, at the Faculty of Natural Resources and Environment, and I move to the clinic, then I become a critical skills provider. That is unscientific, because human resource is my background. Then because of where I work, I'm not qualified for market premium. And even that market premium, according to him, was not properly done. It was an improper survey. That's why it was called interim. So put us all in the interim, and then we move on from it. And then the non-basic allowance also, non-basic. When we met with the government, high-powered high-powered delegation, the understanding was that they were going to fuse the two. What we were supposed to have taken as a result of market premium and non-basic allowance. That was our understanding. That's why we have been resisting all this work. And that the two coming together will now be senior staff allowance. First, it was senior staff special allowance. Once we were at it, they said they were not comfortable with the word special. So we dropped the special, then we left with the senior staff allowance. Now, to sort to hybrid the two, market premium and non-basic allowance and still gave us 8%. We thought that was not right because everybody who enjoyed the non-basic allowance took 8%. Okay. So why will you hybrid the two and still think that senior staff should still go with that 8%? That was the bone of contention. But at the National Labour Commission hearing, it was made very clear that government is now sorting to decouple the two. And I'm saying that if they decouple the two, we wouldn't have any basis to say that we will not accept the 8% non-basic allowance. Because research has it that nobody, no union, no staff across public sector workers have been able to get more than 8% non-basic allowance. That one I know as a matter of fact. Okay. So that was the challenge. So that has been made clear, and I think that we will be comfortable accepting the 8% non-basic allowance without market premium. That was the point. But to say that you are combining the two and doing those things is going to be problematic. All right. And again, talking about the deadlines, Doc also mentioned it. I think we need to be very firm and fair when we sign agreements. Because these days, when you go to sign agreement with government, you are not very sure. Because talking about agreement is here. When we were on strike, the high-powered government delegation met us on the 19th of May 2021. We signed on to an agreement. He was there. In fact, the Director General of Ghana Tertiary Education Commission was there. Controller Accountant General was there. Minister of Education was there. Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, they were all there. We signed on to 60 days agreement that they were going to use the 60 days within which to finalize all the concerns that we have been raising. In fact, an agreement that we're so pleased with, except the point 4, where they sought to say that to call off the strike immediately. And I told them the business of calling off the strike is vested on the National Executive Council. Like Doc was saying, I have also been sent. I cannot be an autocratic leader. I need to get back and brief them. So we briefed them. Then we communicated back to government that our members are saying that they cannot call off the strike. And that was the basis. The 60 days also elapsed. On the 19th of July, nothing happens. And as part of the agreement, we were asked by government to submit names of our technical team as senior staff, and government will do same. The business was for the two technical teams to sit and decide the modalities on how the tier 2 interest is going to be paid. Because we had indicated that that amount that government owed from 2010 to 2016, it was for government to transfer the fund to the fund managers under the law, the Pension Act 2008, Act 766. That the business of government should deduct 5% of our hard-earned basic salary, Akoto, and transfer to the fund manager to trade with, invest, so that when I am going on retirement, the fund manager will now give me the capital plus all other returns on it. Then government kept this money from 2010 to 2016. When we made noise, you went and paid only 41, exactly the principal without. Meanwhile, our colleagues who have gone on retirement are languishing in poverty. These were the dictates of Ghanaian law that they followed. According to the 2008 the Act 766, they respected that and contributed. Now they are on retirement. They cannot get the end of service benefit. They cannot get what is due them. And then when you said we should give you our side of technicality, we did that on the 30th of June and submitted the list to the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations. I'm saying that it was at the court here, in fact, at the National Labour, that they were telling us that they cited the document 2 weeks ago, which cannot be true. And then once we were at it, we were still on strike. Then Dr. Kwapong managed to get vice chancellors and Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. You know, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, they are the regulators of the public universities, and the vice chancellors are custodians. In fact, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission was represented by Dr. Ahmed Jinapo, who is the Deputy Director General. And the Vice Chancellors Ghana were represented by the Vice Chancellor for University of Ghana, Professor Odro, and the Rector of Ghana Institute of Journalism. We came together and we said, look, we want you to give us something, some commitment that, look, this time around, you are promising you are going to do. Dr. Ahmed Jinapo told us there that the minutes of the meeting is enough. And that there's no way government this time around will not respect the thing. And the agreement was that Dr. Kwapong and us are expected to use the period from 30th of June to the 19th of July to finalize everything. We communicated same to our members. On the 19th, we did not hear anything. Nothing. Only for a letter inviting us to the negotiation came from Dr. Kwapong on the 26th of July. which is not the agreement. The agreement was that it lapsed on the 19th. So what happens on the 19th? And once we were at it, even when on the 19th, when he wrote to us and we went, we thought that a new mandate has been secured, only for us to be splashed again with the old mandate. Unfortunately, the vice chancellors and the regulators who came in on the basis of which the strike was suspended on the 11th of June, they were missing in action. They did not even come to hear us. They were not there. Vice chancellors were not there. Ghana Tertiary Education Commission were not also present at the meeting. And the meeting ended inconclusively. And we told them they wanted to know whether they would hear from us or not. Then we said, yes, you hear from us. And Dr. Kwapong was insisting when, because they need to get back to government. We told them latest by 3rd. But we had written to them on the 30th of July, stating that we are unable to do this and that. There are certain figures, like because of the rules of engagement, you cannot mention the figures, which Dr. Kwapong knows that we have submitted our letters to them. So what happens to that agreement? Now, Labour Commission directed, he was also there, that we, Dr. Kwapong and government and ourselves should use 3 months. It failed. Nothing happens. Then we went and signed another agreement on the 19th with high-power government delegation that has been rubbish. After the 60 days, nothing came from it. In between that, we went ahead to bring vice chancellors and GTEC to sign another agreement. Nothing happens. And as if that is not enough, the senior staff cadre, we were also enjoying certain responsibility allowance on the various campuses. Then a letter came from GTEC that, yes, we are not qualified. They should drop us. And Akoto, you know what is happening when you drop somebody's allowance. There were people who were on loans, bank loans. Because if I'm going to take a bank loan, I look at the current strength of my salary and take the bank loan. Then just as I started paying the loan, maybe within 1 month that I'm supposed to pay close to 5 years, then you take off my allowance. And that allowance we had very serious problem with, which we have been talking with Dr. Kwapong, because his act, the Act 2007, Act 737 that established the Fair Wage and Salary Commission. Whilst these allowances were being determined by Ghana Tertiary Education Commission and vice chancellors, were as a result of the fact that the laws, the Fair Wages and Salary Commission had not existed. I mean, they did not come into existence. Now they are there. Why will we sit down for people to determine that senior staff, for you people, you are not proper Ghanaians, so we are taking off your allowances? And then when Gawa was also taken off and they complained, and they made argument that, look, they were paying the positions and not the individuals. Were we not individuals? That's what happens to senior staff. That is how bad our case is.
All right, I've heard you.
I would have loved to emphasize a little bit regarding this bad
time is not on your side. Hold on. Time is not on both of your sides. So I just want to wrap this up quickly. So, Mr. Zabi, if you can hear me. Okay, so then I've heard basically everybody. So I'll just give all of you just a minute each so we can wrap this up so that I can move on. So, Dr. Kwapong.
Right. Let me go back.
You have, I think your problems are here.
Yes.
Lots.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me go back to the matter of market premium.
Okay.
Originally, they were not covered. They were not entitled to. Their members were not eligible because at the time, their members were not in short supply and yet critical to the needs of this nation. Let us get that one very clear. So they were not included. Now, when we introduced market premium in 2010, it traveled a road up to 2012, 2013, and then government said it's unsustainable, so we froze it. Now, in 2018, those who were eligible and who had been receiving market premium, albeit eroded levels, came to government and said that, look, we are worse off, so what do we do to us? And we said, well, we are waiting the outcome of a research we are conducting. In the meantime, let us give you 8% non-basic salary allowance to cushion you against any hardships until the market, the labor market survey is concluded. The moment we introduced that, all other unions came at us asking for same, and we were compelled to, in one way or the other, extend to them. These were unions whose members were already enjoying labor interim market premium. Now, when you go to the turn of the Senior Staff Association negotiations, they said they also wanted because they were providing direct support to their senior members. We said, well, we'll go and convince our principals, which they bought into. But then we will not even call it non-basic allowance because from the genesis of the matter, you were not part. But because you've made a very cogent argument that some of your members in the hospitals and other places were enjoying some form of market premium, you will extend to your members. But we will call it University's Senior Staff Allowance. So that at least it's not the name, and he will remember, it's not the name you are interested in, but some money for your members, which you have agreed you will start from 8%. So then don't let it look as if from the beginning you were enjoying market premium. And know that the non-basic salary allowance is a fallout from the payment of interim market premium. All right? So there is a history to it.
Okay.
So you don't come for it as a matter of right because your counterparts are taking it, because we are not part of that.
Point well made. Dr. Nkrumah, final word for you.
Sure, thank you very much. I just wanted to indicate that if it is one party treating the other in bad faith, as far as UTAG negotiating with government is concerned, it is the case that government has not treated us fairly. Both from the negotiations with the government side and the surprise that has been sprung on us by the National Labour Commission with the injunction. Aside that, we also have got to be mindful of the old saying that you can force a horse to the riverside, but you can certainly not force it to drink water. And so it is appropriate that we resolve matters amicably through dialogue, rather than these attempts at using institutions that ought to know better and ought to be independent to gag us into submission of some sort as to what to do, particularly so when we know very much that the point that is being made by UTAG, for example, or being made by senior associations, for example, are matters of grave concern that need serious attention rather than an attempt to cow us into submission. And that, I don't think our members are going to be happy about.
All right, then. Thank you very much. So we'll wrap up this leg of the conversation. A big thank you to Dr. Samuel Nkrumah, UTAG President, Dr. Edward Kwapong, Chief Executive for Wages and Salaries Commission, and Zakaria Mohammed, National Chairman, Senior Staff Association, University of Ghana. I'll keep an eye on this. We'll take another break. When we return, we'll talk about Fix the Country, the protest that happened in the course of the week. The Big Issue. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Big Issue, and we continue our conversation. I was going to try and do Fix the Country, but I want to mix up a bit and work with sports. Franklin Cudjoe has been substituted in since we are doing sports. Franklin, did you play football as a young man?
I was actually a goalkeeper. Yes.
You were a goalkeeper?
Yes, I was.
You know, normally they say if you don't know how to play, that is when they say you're a goalkeeper.
Well,
but you're a good
I
goalkeeper.
guess I think I was a good one. I mean, I guess the goalkeeper is part of the team, isn't it? I mean, the goalkeeper prevents the goal in the foot.
So I have subbed in Franklin Cudjoe for the sporting side of the conversation before we talk about Fix the Country. Now we're talking about sports because it's been a significant week. The Olympics ends this weekend, and the whole country has been up for the past 2.5 weeks. Watching various countries compete for glory, including our own Ghana. We've got a medal, a bronze medal, Samuel Techi. Congratulations. The first the country has won in boxing since, 49 years. And our first medal since 1992. Since 1992. That's how far back since Ghana won a medal. We were participating ever since. But this time around, people are asking questions. Why is it that we're not doing well? And they've also been lauding the athletes who have gone there and performed creditably on the back of their own efforts, mostly, without state support, without corporate support. Most of them have been able to do it themselves. And people are asking, well, if perhaps giving the right support, we could be able to generate a generation of champions who will win medals for Ghana and project Ghana's reputation as a home of sports champions. So we're going to have a bit of a conversation around that. But like I said, I've subbed in Franklin Cudjoe. He was paying attention to our initial conversation on the singles span, and you have a quick comment on that.
Yes, I mean, I remember somewhere in 2010 when this whole principle or system was introduced, we had cause to complain about the fact that it was the single biggest, should I call it, farce when it comes to rationalization of wages within the, in fact, within the public sector and indeed within every sector itself. I mean, the thought that you were going to replace the price mechanism of determining labor and its costs with a centrally planned system like the single spine was going to cause the kinds of commotions that have attended every wage conversation, or if you like, the conflict over wage conversations in this country. You know, Godfred, the fact that somebody breaks the back or breaks his back by clearing the virgin forest and in the process planting corn and harvesting corn cannot be compared with your job in this very swanky radio station as a presenter, right? Mm-hmm. What am I driving at? Essentially to suggest that it is your ability to add to the bottom line of the business that determines what you receive as a wage. So the profit motive or the profit indicator is probably the best way of leveraging or determining what you should receive as a wage in your enterprise. But the moment that it's replaced with any system that tries to establish equivalences based on educational qualifications, you descend into some real farce and then upstage the whole notion of the price mechanism. But of course, it gets very murkier and even interesting when you're dealing with the public sector, because there are certain ministries that obviously are not adding the same value to the national kitty as others are. So in that sense, what would you do? Would you be paying the same ministers the same amount of money, or paying people who work in the various ministries the same amount of money simply because they work in the ministry or probably have the same degree? Mm-hmm. I think that is the conversation that we should have, rather than try to use a centrally planned system to establish equivalences in wages. It doesn't work anywhere. I mean, you recall when Tony Blair was appointed as an advisor to J.P. Morgan, people were wondering why he was earning multi-million, was basically earning millions of dollars, even though he may be professionally qualified as a lawyer or whatnot. But the reason why he was earning those sums was because he was adding to the profitability of the business per his advice. So at the end of the day, the profit mechanism or the price mechanism cannot be replaced by any centrally planned authority. I mean, when you do that, you descend into this farce where you try to establish equivalences, and then you have to now introduce something called market premium. The moment you give market premium to one professional group, the next are waiting in line. And that's where you get to when the finance minister will tell you, where am I supposed to get money to pay? But if it was established that the profits, basically the price mechanism, I mean, would have been the best leveler, really. And so maybe we'll get there when we fully decentralize our governance system, so that municipalities will take control of when it comes to paying professionals for the jobs they do.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Franklin, for that. Former goalkeeper Franklin Cudjoe sharing his thoughts on the single spine. But like I said, I wanted to delve a bit into the Olympics and the future of Ghana sports in that regard. And I've been joined for this segment of the conversation. I'll be joined by Sandy Osei-Agyeman, who's a former president of the Ghana Athletics Association. Dr. Kofi Amoah will also join us. We all know him from the CAN 2008 LOC, and also recently as president of the normalization committee that ran the Ghana Football Association post the ANAS expose. And also Dr. Kwame Banu-Akum, my old mentor. He's now with GMPC. He's an economist, general manager for sustainability and stakeholder relations at GMPC, but somebody who pays significant attention to what happens in sports, having been a sportsman practically his whole life from primary school. Dr. Banu-Akum, are you still in sports, participating actively, I mean?
Well, good morning to your listeners and viewers. How are you, my brother?
I am well.
Let me just quickly say that in terms of still being in sports, well, you can see I still have if you see what I'm wearing, I have my Kotoko jersey there. That's the fun, being a fanatic. But beyond that, I also serve as the chairman of the FA's Club Licensing Board, basically the body that vests the licenses of clubs to play the Premier and Division 1, as well as the Women's Premier League, and then also ensures that our venues meet the standards. So I've moved on from the administration part to the regulator part of the football game.
But what people don't also know is that you spent a long period of time basically administering sports from the secondary school level through the university level. You were a significant member of the University of Ghana sports fraternity as well.
Yeah, beyond that, before that, at Opoku School in Form 3, as far back as 1987, in a sixth form school, when I was in Form 3, I was the team manager for every sporting discipline. So I was, so whether football, athletics, hockey, volleyball, table tennis, cross country, I was the person in charge of organizing Opoku School from Form 3 up to Form 5. And then when I went to sixth form in Konongo, even though I wasn't the sports prefect, I was basically the one leading them to Itako in Kumasi. So I've been in there and then moved on to be a sports journalist. I moved from being the organizer to journalism, and then I went on to become an administrator, especially in Kumasi Asante. But you know the University of Ghana days. Yes. I remember my dad used to say in his lecture room when I was a student, he was asking my colleagues, he wasn't sure whether his son was majoring in economics or sports.
But I'm sure you've been watching the Olympics and following the comments of Ghanaians who are asking, well, we're seeing other countries do well in sports. Ghana is supposedly a sports-loving country, but we've seen our athletes, we've finally got a medal, but the call has been, what really did the state provide for these young men and women to do what they did? How do we move from that state to a state where we can start celebrating hordes of medals at games?
Okay, let me just probably summarize it. In whatever venture that you want to engage in, if you're looking for returns, you need to invest. And I'm sure Franklin would agree with me from the economics business side. Whatever you want to earn returns on anything, you want to returns in terms of gold medals, silver or whatever, or African trophies, you need to invest. And I don't think as a country, we've invested enough in sports to be clamoring for the kind of successes that other countries are looking for. That's the simple truth. I'll just give you an indicator. When I joined GNPC in 2017, the previous management had gracefully signed up to what we call the GNPC Fastest Human competition. Basically, a young man who was a former Olympian had decided that for us to be able to win any medals or do well at the Olympic Games in Tokyo, which was scheduled for 2020, we needed to invest. And he felt that Ghana's real asset, as far as our history in athletics, was the sprints. So he was going to introduce what he called Ghana's Fastest Human, where every year he goes around the country and get these young men and women to compete. We'll crown the 100 meters champion, which was the key one. And maybe what a lot of people don't know. So GNPC came on board and decided that one of our tagline is empowering dreams. And so if we were hoping to make sure that some young men and women could dream of becoming Olympic champions, somebody needed to support them. So GNPC came on board. And between 2014 and 2020, and currently, GNPC has been supporting that. You just saw the 4x100 meters relay team getting to the finals of the competition. Out of the 5 members of that team, 4 of them came through the GNPC Ghana Fastest Human process. Basically telling you that we invested, the only people we invested in, probably like GNPC did, actually went to the finals of their competition. And that probably, if we had done it for a lot more Ghanaians in other disciplines, we probably would have had more. So basically, investments yield returns, and we have not done enough.
But you are looking at the investments from, well, a parastatal side of things positively. But from a policy side of things, what do you think needs to be done? Is the framework that we currently have good enough? How do we improve it?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I'll look at athletics, where I've been very much, even though I've not been in the administration part of athletics, I've been very much involved in schools and colleges. We changed somewhere along the line, we changed our educational system and didn't look at its effect on sports. And I think it's time for us to go back and look at what the change from the A-level system did to our athletics, success. Let me explain. When for the O-levels and the A-level system, a child will go to secondary school at the age of 12 and 13 years, boarding house. He had a sports master whose main job was to develop talents. And so between the ages of 13 and 18, where he'll be in Form 1 to Form 5, there was consistent training, professional advice, and competition for that person to build himself. So by the time they got to sixth form, some of them had trained consistently for 5 years to extend that when they got to sixth form, they were African champions. The Doris Frimaredus and Akosia Abrefa and all those guys were still in secondary school when they won African gold medals. It tells you that's the age range within which, if training is properly done, you'll get results. What happened when we shifted to the SSS system was that before somebody began to get this professional support in terms of athletics, you will already be 15 years he JHS level is not boarding. Majority of them is not boarding school. And so for 3 years, there's no, even if he ran in primary school, once he gets to JHS, there's not much competition. So between the ages of 12, 15, when he's supposed to be determining which event he's even good at, he's in JHS and there's not much professional touch. He gets to SHS and he's only in boarding house for 2.5 to 3 years. And by the third year, he's preparing for WASI. And most of these sports people will not concentrate on the athletics. And so then there's a gap. And then in this country, so between 15 and 18, he's in the senior high school. There's not much development. So he gets to university where the previous group were getting to the top of their game. In university games, nobody is investing in university games in Ghana. And so we changed our educational system. It had implications on sports, and nobody has even thought about whether we need to shift the focus of sponsorship of sports in our educational systems from where to where we created a gap. And so even though previously Ghana was doing well in volleyball, even on the African continent, hockey, we were also competing. We had even clubs in Ghana playing the African Hockey Championship. And athletics, Ghana was dominating even at the All-African Games. We've changed our educational system, and trust me, it's affected our fortunes in sports. So we need, from a policy point of view, need to sit down and rethink where the investment needs to go to support our quest for returns from sporting tournaments.
Are you one of those who supports this argument that it is time to stop this wholesale support for all kinds of sports, because the NSA licenses some sports that a lot of people, most people consider recreational to an extent, and spreads already scarce resources to reach all of these events, some of whom can even go 2-3 years without domestic competition. And that is high time we prioritize on boxing, athletics, maybe you mentioned volley, hockey, the ones that historically we have shown that we have capacity to participate and do well in.
Okay, let's look at maybe examples from two countries who are doing well at this Olympic Games, the UK and Germany, for instance. I'll just give you an example. In Germany, what happens? There is a group called Friends of German Sports. In German, they call it Deutscher Sportschleifer. These are people who are well-to-do, they've come together and decided that they will be called Friends of German Sports. They raise a lot of funding. They organize an annual sports event, the awards event, very well attended. The chief executive, they are corporate members of even this body. They raise a lot of money. 90% of all sportsmen who have been to these Olympic Games have been supported by this group. And looking at what you just said, the amount of resources you get depends on your success in prior events. So, for instance, if somebody won a gold medal at the European Championship, it determines how much money funding they receive in the next budget cycle. If you are a silver medalist at a national championship, it determines how much funding. If you didn't win any award, even at a local championship, a national championship, or a regional championship, then you hardly receive any funding. So that people know that if you want funding from this body, you need to focus on achieving excellence. So if it is badminton, which seems to be getting gold medals at the All-African Games, then all of a sudden there's a lot of funding for badminton because they've shown promise. If it is boxing that has won us an Olympic bronze medal, then the Ghana Boxing Authority, whichever body, which is whether amateur boxing, which allowed us to win that medal, in the next budget cycle can ask for a lot more money. So that if swimming really wants to be given funding from this body, then they need to show that they have the potential. Because if you want a sub-regional competition, there's some amount of money you can get. If you were able to win a regional, let's say an African title, it increases the amount of funding that is given. And if you win an Olympic medal, that is even more. The UK also does that, to the extent that some of the disciplines that went into the Olympic Games don't even receive funding from UK sports. I'll give you an example. BMX, the young lady who won gold medal had to do crowdfunding to be able to get into the qualify into the Olympic Games. However, because she won an Olympic medal, automatically within the next budget cycle, she receives a lot of funding from UK sports in preparation to the next Olympics or the European Championship or whatever. So we can look at that. Like you said, our resources are thin, so we might need to prioritize in the first budget cycle. We'll decide that these sports have the potential, so we are going to support. However, if at the 2023 All-African Games, different sports also show us that they have the potential, then the country then needs to look at how do we support such other sports. So it has to be quid pro quo. You need to show something to get some support. But however, if we are going to use that measure to then, on what basis would we be supporting football? Because you were making example, the last time Ghana won any medal in any real football, of course, we have the under-20s winning Africa and world titles. But the Black Stars, 1982 was the last time the Black Stars won any competition. The Meteors, the last time they won a major title, bronze in 1992 Olympic Games, 82 for the Black Stars. So can we then justify the amount of money we spend on the Black Stars if there's the formula for government spending? That's the kind of discussions that we need to have.
All right. Hold on for me, Dr. Bawumiako. Let me talk to a former Olympian and get what his thoughts are on this matter. Sandiose Agyeman competed for Ghana at the 1972 Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. He was a sprinter.
He's also a Katechu. He's also an Pukuara guy.
Oh, Dr. Bawumiako, Dr. Bawumiako. Mr. Agyeman, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? Hey, Doctor, how are you? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Dr. Bawumiako cannot hear you yet. I am the one who can communicate with you.
Dr. He was also on the Pukuara. He was also on the wire. So you got all three. Okay.
So I'm having a conversation with Tria Ketechi. This is so unfair.
Anyway, I've been listening to Doctor. He makes some very good points. But let me start by saying this. I strongly believe in cumulative leadership. I strongly believe in synergistic leadership. What I mean is this. When you come to meet an association, you should always try to embrace the one that you replace, because they have some experience that could benefit you. They have some knowledge, the process and the challenge. They know all of that. But what happens, at least in athletics, is that new guys come in, they think they have all the answers. So they discard what was learned, what was achieved before. So we keep on going back in circles, going back in circles. So moving forward, it will make sense for previous administrators, previous athletes to become the focus of trying to change athletics in Ghana. It doesn't happen enough. The ministry does not engage, the sports council does not engage, or even when they engage, they might pick 1 or 2 or 3 people. But they need to embrace everybody who has had a chance to run, be part of the athletics, have run before, have been administrators before, so that we can have accumulated leadership experience to move the sport forward. Secondly, I want to congratulate the young guys that were able to make it to the finals. That's a big plus. And to move forward, as a country, we have to decide what it is that we want to do. And I keep going back to look at Jamaica as an example. They made a deliberate effort way back after Doncore's time that they knew that they were good sprinters. They have Leonard Miller and all of this, so they were going to focus. So what did they do? They were able to get the IAAF to build an excellence center in Jamaica. And they've also been able to keep their intercorp equivalent all these years. So what happens is that they have a forum where athletes can try to go and shine and compete, and the schools compete, and it has sustained them. But here in Ghana, the tendency is that you're on your own, okay? And then when you're on your own, there's so much that you can do. If you get lucky to go into the U.S. to continue your athletic career like we all did, at least you have the benefit of competition. You have a chance to compete all year round between the indoor season and the outdoor season. But let's say you're an athlete in Ghana, who do you compete with? Things that we used to do in my time is that we used to have bilateral competition. Ghana will run against Nigeria, Ghana will run against Ivory Coast. All these have stopped. And then when you combine that with what happened with the school system, as the doctor said, it doesn't benefit us. So what do we do? Moving forward, what is the strategic plan? Do we really want to make Ghana an athletic focus center? Then let's do what the blueprint is. Let's have an excellent center, a good stadium, a good facility, and let's get a nucleus athletes to support them. In my time, too, in the summertime when everybody was going, we used to have camp. We would take all the athletes, you go camp about 3-4 weeks, you train, you get to meet your teammates, and that's how you build it. We don't build anything, and then we expect to get some results. Additionally, another thing that has missed is that when we talk about medals, everybody seems to have forgotten that in 2005, when I was the chairman, Ghana won 2 medals at the World Championship in athletics. Geza won the silver in long jump. Margaret Simpson won the bronze in heptathlon. And that ranked Ghana 16th on the world list. These are examples that we can still win. So if we want to make Ghana Athletic Center, let's put in the investment, let's put in the strategy. Let's have a short-term, medium-term, long-term strategy, and let's be deliberate about it. It goes for boxing, it goes for whatever sport that we take. Otherwise, every 4 years we sit back here and we'll be expecting something that we haven't invested in. That's all I want to add.
Let me just ask a quick question. In the points that you made, you show that transition from the senior high school level. Of course, Interco, very popular in your day, as well as my days quite recently. But we seem to have struggled to build a bridge between the senior high school talent pool and the university talent pool, as well as the senior high school drop-off or drop-out bridge as well, because we have a significant dropout rate for athletes as well, even at the senior high school level. But there does not seem to be a plan for even that pool as well. How do we figure this out to make this work?
Well, the way you do that, if it's a strategy of the nation or the state sport that we're going to make athletics a major focus for Ghana sport, just like Rex Brogan took it upon himself to do the Ghana fastest person, we can identify these young athletes early. But what do we do? Other than Rex giving them some competition, what else do we do to make sure that we harness these athletes? It has to be an academy of some sort. To have these athletes when they have time, school break, they can come out there and train and compete and work out. There's nothing like that. Everybody is left on their own. So if there's a gap between the high schools. The talents are there. Let's find them and let's find a way that we can get them together on a regular basis to train them as they grow. That way, you don't lose the talent. If it's a dropout and you have talent, they can be part of the campaign that you do on a regular basis. That's the best surest way that you know that at least you can have an incubator of talent, and within that incubator, you could have them all at once. As they grow, the better ones will come out, and then you keep nurturing them till they reach a stage where they can represent the country. These are some of the deliberate decisions that have to be done. If it's not done, we're just going to be just going back and forth, and nothing's going to happen. That's what I experienced. That's what I know. And by the way, you should remember that most people that win the Olympic medals are second-timers. But if you go the first time, you don't win, it's okay. If you committed enough, the second time around, you're more experienced, you're better, you know what you can do right, and then you have a better chance of getting the medal. So let's try to see these young guys that run the relay team. They're young. They're proving that they can go to the finals without much support. So let's find a way to keep them together for the next 4 years. And I'm sure that by that time they'll be matured and still young enough to be better for Ghana.
There's also concern about, yes, we need to raise the money for the infrastructure, like you said. The matter of the people who train the champions and the lack of, one would say, a good pool of instructors in the various sports and disciplines. So we still leave it to persons to coach at an amateur level. But once talent gets to a certain level, it requires also a certain level of instruction.
You're making a good point. You know what athletes like Vida and him and all those people used to, we used to have some foreign coaches that were here in Ghana training them. We used to have these experienced people that will, with the right talent, we can engage some of them. They will come and they will train, and they will train some of the local coaches. In our time, Winneba School was producing some of the best sports masters. That's how all our talent came from. It wasn't anybody else. It was the same people. So what happened to all these physical education teachers that were trained to become our mentors to help us to develop and become better sprinters? We don't have them anymore. Ohene Kakari started as a headler. And he became a headler because our sports master then was Mr. Finn. And he showed Ohene Kakari, even at that year way back in the 70s, how to jump the hurdle. Ohene was a short man, but he was able to become a headler and become a very good headler. And from that, he transitioned to sprint. So it goes to the whole strategy. You know, everything starts from the strategy, from the coaching, from the talent pool, from the infrastructure, from the taking care of the athletes. And if it's not a policy, committed policy, please let's not waste our time talking about what we need to be done. Because you know what we do in Ghana. We will talk and talk and talk. It sounds good when we talk, but we don't put any action behind it. So Ghana has to decide, do we want to make boxing or athletics the best thing for Ghana? Well, let's have a sports council, let's have the National Sports Authority, whatever, get to work and be serious about it.
Oh, okay. Now we have the All Africa Games ahead of us, and again, you raised the point of we like doing the talking. Earlier in the week, we spoke to the sports minister, for instance, who says, "Look, I've spoken to a couple of people. We are coming back to get things done." And what even emerged from the conversation that surprised me a bit was we do not even have an IAAF certified track in Ghana as we speak today, which was a bit of a shocker.
It should be, because I know that during my time, IOC and IAAF had agreed to build a stadium for athletics at Amasaman. I believe that time BT Baba was there, whatever it is at IOC, I got GOC. What happened to that idea? They were going to put the tartan track and certify it. So what happened to all those ideas? Again, we start something, and then somewhere along the line, the cracks come in. Nobody take out the money and get it done. So all these things are there. How come Senegal was able to get a track of excellence where people can go and train? How come Jamaica have one? How come Ghana can have one? I mean, these are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves. And also, we just have to start bringing some business ideas into some of these things. Raising money is a business idea. If you package yourself well and you talk to enough people, If I talk to 20 people, you're very right that 2 will say yes. So you can have the resources you need if you bring the business approach to running the sport. So if you don't have a certified track, how are we going to have the 2023 All-African Games? I mean, are we going to wait to the last minute? I mean, we said that we're going to fix the Legon Stadium. What are we waiting for? Why can't we just do it now and do a simulation now and do whatever we need to do, knowing that this is ready? So these are some of my concerns. Unless we tackle some of these issues seriously, please. We're not going anywhere. That's all I can say.
Okay, let me come back to Dr. Baniako. Dr. Baniako.
I'm here.
Yes, so I'm sure you have heard from Dr. Mr. Osei-Agyeman.
Yes,
he has made quite a few of the points that you have also made. But again, my concern is with where the talent pool is and also the level of instruction. So we're looking at the potential athletes, for instance, looking ahead to 2023, and the people who train the athletes, plus the infrastructure. These are the three things we need to put in place. So we need the athletes.
You need talent.
We need the talent.
You need talent. You need infrastructure.
We need infrastructure. We need instruction.
And then you need technique.
Yes, where the instructors come in.
Yes.
We have an All-Africa Games ahead of us in 2 years.
I think Mr. Osei-Agyeman made a particular point that we need. He says we need to be particular about it. There has to be a plan. Identification of where the talent pool is based on plan. This is what I want to do. What are the resources required, and where is the resource? The resources, financial, infrastructure, as well as the talent. You need to determine where they are. So for me, we know that the earlier you start, the better. So, for instance, I'm thinking that for athletics, what these young men have shown is that, for instance, GNPC's investment was good. He talked about even academies. In actual fact, the GNPC Fastest Human actually culminated into a 1-year camping program, which we call the GNPC Speedsters Club. So these guys get just 1 year. But imagine what we could have achieved if we had put a lot more resources in. So the talent pool starts from our JHS, and then SHS, and then you come to our universities. If you are waiting for somebody to get to the university before you start putting them together, they are probably, by current Olympic standards, they are too old. So for me, we need to be deliberate about how we target primary school kids, JHS. There has to be planned. Now, even the national sports festivals are hardly held. And this is one of the key challenges we have.
Baniako, for that input. Franklin, you've also been watching the Olympics. What have you made of Ghana's performances?
Well, I guess the ones that we invested in has clearly demonstrated, the conversations we've had. Well, I listened to your show, The Breakfast Show, and I think you went on lamenting that those who had invested in themselves somehow managed to do a little bit better. If I understood what the Dr. Baniako is saying, GNPC somehow invested in
for the fastest human event.
Exactly, and at least it got us into the finals. So the theory works. I mean, you can't definitely, if you invest in something, you tend to reap the results really. And I don't think we've seen the last of the lamentations. We heard the last of the lamentations about the nature of our sports. I guess the real issue has to do with the policy alignment, the design, and the thinking processes that go into what objectives we have put for ourselves or we want to achieve. So just as with just as it is with most of our policies in this country, usually we do not think through them before we implement them. And unfortunately, we would not get the honors unless we do what is needful. I guess that's the bottom line in all the conversations we've had. And so I'm not surprised that the results we managed to get clearly show. I mean, I think it's only boxing that we won bronze.
Yes. We've won 5 Olympic medals. Of the 5, 4 have come from boxing.
Well, exactly. And it's sad that football has also not been represented this time around, when indeed we used to be the beacon on the continent, or somehow around the world, when at least we invested in the football. So things are going south, and I think it is important. Look, the level of expertise you've heard from Mr. Sandi Osajima and Dr. Baniaku tells you that the talent is there in terms of advice. There are tomes of advice that have been given, and you yourself have been you're a sports investor, and you've given all sorts of advice, and I don't know whether it's actually getting to the right corner. And also, we've only, just as you said on the show this week, we only get serious when it's just about a month or two to some tournaments or to some competition. And that's not the way to prepare, really. There's no way you're going to benefit or reap the benefits if you haven't invested enough in it. There are all manner of sports disciplines that I think we can do a whole lot. But you said something during the week as well, that we should focus on where we think we can reap the medals, right? I mean, you were going on and on about weightlifting, and I watched the weightlifting. I saw our countries within the somehow the Eastern Bloc, some countries
the former
that
USSR side.
Exactly, were doing well. It's because they intensely or intentionally invested in those sports. And so we can choose what we want to do. If it is boxing, yes. If it is if swimming, why not? If it is athletics, if it is athletics, we should try and focus exactly where our energies would bring us results, and let's focus, let's invest in that.
Thank you. Points well made. So that's how I will wrap up our conversation on the Olympic cycle of things, and we can focus on Fix the Country demo. But just before we get there, we can take a couple of messages that have come through in the course of the program, and you can also send your messages 0549986996. That's a WhatsApp line. 0549986996 and 0550585832. 0550585832. So a couple of messages that have come in so far on the conversations we have held. Good morning, Godfred. Aren't the leadership of the NLC appointed by government? If so, how can they be neutral with our current style of politics? This and many other problems are the need for a complete overhaul of the Constitution. Paul from Adenta is saying, it says there's no justice in the system in terms of salaries, remunerations, and conditions of service in this country. If a whole president can tell teachers that if they want to be billionaires, they should do side jobs in addition to teaching, what's he telling us? Why should you wait for workers to strike before giving them what's due? But when it comes to yourselves, salaries, remuneration, and the likes, you have no problems, and that's with reference to the government. Of course, he says, are we not all working for Ghana? They are only there for themselves and their families. Iman of Makati also says, till certain things are changed in this country, we do not have a future. Babamu from Tamale Central says, Godfred, good day. I think both parties need to negotiate. UTAG should exercise restraint, and please go back to the lecture theatres because I know their concerns will be addressed. This one from Kwekwi La Paz says, Godfred, money makes the world go round. The Ghana Sports Authority, what you mean by, sure you mean the National Sports Authority, should think outside the box to fund their sporting activities. I am ready to contribute. Okay, Kwekwi La Paz, I'm sure they are listening. UTAG must demand and get whatever they want before going back to the classroom. This is Xylix Dwayne in London. The sports minister and his officials were more than the athletes we took to Tokyo. They were in Tokyo because of per diem. That money could have helped with building structures here. This is a very upset listener of the show. Walanyo Nakwetia is already tweeting about our upcoming topic. He says, what was the essence of the Fix the Country demo? What does it take to fix the country? If the status quo is to be taken care, where were we as a nation? Where are we as a nation? Selfless leaders are on course fixing the mess created. Okay, that's where Walanyo is coming from. AU Farouk Tamale North says, good morning. Why is the government finding it difficult to negotiate with workers when it comes to salary issues? How can strikes be the MOU to government? If not incompetence and cluelessness, how else would this be the status quo? So that is a message that has come in. So you can also be heard. Keep sending the messages in. I will go to those on Twitter before we wrap up. But on Wednesday, August 4th, thousands of Ghanaians participated in the Fix the Country protest. Now, they demanded, among other things, return to the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Commission, and also suggested steps to address the many challenges facing ordinary Ghanaians. So we will just listen to some of the voices that were on the street, and when we come back, Franklin Cudjoe is still with us. We'll be joined by the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kumah, as well as a convener, one of the conveners of the protest, Brownson Adachi.
Very, very much for all the sacrifices that over the years you have exhibited, which has led to the peace and security that we enjoy as a country. Thank you very much. Second, to come and tell you, to send a message of appreciation from us at the leadership of the police to your wives and children and your extended family for giving you to the police service, for you to do the work that you are doing. We want you to send that message. And tell them, the leadership will have your back, and we have their back also by extension. Whatever happened to you, whatever happened to them, have happened to us. So we'll see to it that your happiness is our happiness. We will see to it that your pain is our pain. So we came to urge you that you have this on your mind as you go out there to do this job. And when you are guided by this, you will be very careful, you will be very focused, you will be very professional, and get the job done with effort. We are with you on the field, and we will be with you on the field at all times. I thank you very much.
As you can see, the demonstrators are here in their numbers, charged, agitating, expressing their concerns with regards to issues they want addressed in the country. Their placard says it all. The demographics also are quite interesting. The young, the old, men, women are all represented here. And the demonstration, which began from the Brasport, its final destination is the Independence Square. And as you can see, it's all charged up here, fired up. There are demonstrators on the floor wielding placards. There are motorbikes. There are people from various fraternities represented here.
As you can see, the crowd is so large, and even the police is finding it very difficult to control them. And as you can see, as we the marshals also find it very difficult to control them. People are in march today, not because they are afraid of coronavirus, but because they are afraid of the presidency. Yes. Now, if you talk against the president, either they close your radio station down, they destroy your business, they bring down your church, they bring down everything, your business and other investments. You can see the old people, the 60 years and plus, They're always fighting for government appointments, CEOs and board chairmen. And they'll come and tell the youth that the youth should be entrepreneurs. That's the bad thing we are demonstrating against today.
Where did you come from again?
Kumasi.
I see. What time did you set off and when did you get to Accra?
Okay, I came 3 days ago and I loaded at Kaswa, but I was here 2 a.m. this morning because I'm tired of certain things. If you go to hospitals, there's no bed. My wife delivered at Ridge Hospital. She delivered on the floor, no bed. And I'm telling you, in this country, 2012, my wife delivered in Ridge Hospital, no bed. Across the nation, there are so many hospitals, but no bed, no nurses. Nurses are there, no equipment. So we are tired of it. They should stop by the V8 and do what is right.
So you mean to tell me you came all the way from Kumasi just for this demonstration?
Yes, I came all the way from Kumasi to do this.
What do you hope this demonstration will achieve?
I'm praying that government will listen to us and certain things will change. That's what we are hoping for.
This is the land our fathers died for. And growing up, this wasn't a country that I saw. So if the economy has gone and I saw, Charlie, this is the reason why I bought. Yeah, one, nothing. She won't go, Charlie won't go.
I can't stand them. I can't stand them. I can't stand
So these were some voices from the protest. And as soon as we're done with this, I will try and squeeze in a matter that emerged yesterday. That was the report that has finally been made public of the ad hoc committee that looked into the handling of the Sputnik V procurement process by the health minister. Remember, there was a bipartisan committee in Parliament that looked into it. There's a report out. I will try and add it to this conversation as well. But let me just speak quickly to an organizer or a convener. They prefer to be called conveners of the protest, Brownson Adachi. Brownson. Hello, Brownson. If you can unmute your microphone.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for joining us. So, the protest finally happened on Wednesday, and for most people, the question is, what next?
Okay, so I want to use this opportunity to say good morning to your viewers and then the people of Ghana and people who are campaigning for change. Now, we've said severally that Fix the Country is a platform that tends to leverage on the voice of the people who has been historically excluded from democratic processes, so as to create some sense of urgency around the need for a substantive democratic reforms. Now, to demonstrate or to protest is not the main aim of the campaign. Okay, the main aim of the campaign is for us to have a fixed system or to have democratic reforms. Now, so demonstration is only the platform people use to vent their spleen or register their displeasure. And we are doing this because we wanted the people to democratically come out with some of their concerns, so we can harmonize these concerns into one thing, or come into consensus that, okay, this is what the people are talking about, and this is the way forward. Now, we are not done harmonizing these concerns. This is just one of a series of demonstrations we intend to embark on. But I think when people are asking what's the way forward, I think the media and then other bodies or other stakeholders involved should open up high-level conversations on some of the issues the people have raised, as we are also giving people the platform to come out with their concerns for now. After that, we will come out with processes to make sure that we have a fixed country.
Now, a large part of the concerns that have been raised are associated with the 1992 Constitution and a return to perhaps the work that was done by the Constitutional Review Commission a few years back, and the concerns about why it has been held up or it has been discarded. How are you pushing that particular message forward?
Okay, so we are saying that most of the problems that people are raising has its source in the Constitution, okay? So we are asking for a new Constitution. And over the years, we learned that there is a 984-page report that is lying down there unattended to. And it is just because it tends to be a review process. That is why any organization can either choose to, that is why the parliament or this can choose to either go for it or not. But we are asking for a process that will give us a new constitution. That is, they are going to either consider the report there and some other reports or things that people have raised over the years. Now, we are saying we are raising a 1 million vote, or 1 million signatures to ask for a change in constitution, to tell leadership that this is what people are asking for. That is the process we are embarking on now, asking for signatures that frowns on the constitution, so they know how serious or the severity of the issues on the ground, so as to open up conversations on that. I think that's what we are doing now. And the sustainability of this? This has come to stay, my brother. This is a movement, more of a movement than just a campaign you're saying. We are decentralizing this movement to every part of the region, of the country and every region. And that is why I said earlier on, this is not just to demonstrate. It is a whole institution or a movement that is going to make sure that we have some sort of democratic reforms for sustainable development.
All right, just hold on a bit for me, Brownson. So, Franklin, you are an old hand at these protests. This particular one, a lot of people say, was important in the sense that it was organic. And it's not something that, one of those protests where you would find political parties heavily involved. And it was kind of a throwback to what we had 5 years ago. Your thoughts on this?
Well, being organic, is a characterization that I think we can largely agree with in this instance. But let's also not forget that the previous one, the Occupy GH1, was also spontaneous, even though there were a number of political actors who joined at some point. In fact, I recall that the political actors were dissuaded from joining, but I guess it became quite uncontrollable, and so some activists, some political actors we see today were part of the process. Let me just say that there's nothing wrong with having organic movements, especially if they, just as they spontaneously rise to the occasion and try to respond to the challenges of the time. I guess the challenge is in going forward with sustaining the momentum that has been generated. I don't want to say that I've seen it before, and then so I'm wary of colors red. While I doff off my hat to the organizers for doing this quite well, some of us were silently supporting them, because clearly we are also getting fed up with policy recommendations that do not see the light of day, because we become paper tigers, and looks as if you need some sort of action or foot on the street, or feet on the street, in order to galvanize your demands. But look, at the end of the day, I heard the gentleman quite well, and if I heard most of the sympathizers of the Fix the Country movement, what I hear largely is that they want development. It may not necessarily even be democracy or democratic reforms, and that development is what they want. There was a time when the Africa Report did a survey across the continent and asked questions as to whether people prefer democracy over development, development over democracy, or vice versa. About 2/3, more than 60% of Africans that were polled said they wanted development, which meant that irrespective of the constitutional strictures in your country, irrespective of the way democracy has been organized in your country, the results of it, in fact, the end result must inure to the benefit of the citizenry. So a part of me feels ambivalent about this ask about democratic reforms, to the extent that if you feel that you are a president and you have been given enormous powers, as it were, to change the lives of people, well, it behoves on you to use it prudently and use it right. If all you do is to appoint your henchmen into office and, as it were, throw all caution to the wind when it comes to procurement, when it comes to certain actions that obviously would not inure to the benefit of the citizenry, then clearly you have yourself to blame. I would also think that one of the challenges of our democratic dispensation, as we have it now, in spite of what the Constitution says, is the fact that political entrepreneurs, however educated they are, do not take into cognizance the potential of the country before they make promises. And it's been seen across. Don't forget, we've been asking questions about the business plans of governments or political parties since 2008. And almost every time we see some sort of a downward trend in terms of the way these policies and the processes that go into them have been organized. So maybe one of the things we should start asking our politicians to stop doing is to sloganeer the whole concept of development. One district this, one village here, one this, one that. Those are symptoms of a disorganized, if you like, political system that does not take into cognizance or take into consideration the potentials of the country. And the potentials of the country here are the human beings that we see. The mass unemployment we see can be fixed not through short programs, short-lived programs like the GDES and its cousins that we have currently. That can only fix a tiny bit of the situation, really. You need to start reforming the process of basically building a productive economy. And if you are spending so much on free SHS, which is a useful tool, by the way, you may start asking yourself, what is the end goal? Is it to build a critical core skill set of people who are able to do things for themselves? So if you are spending just about 16% or so in technical vocational education, there's no way you're going to build the middle level manpower base that you need for a country like this, a country like Ghana, to be able to reach, if you like, to leap in bounds, to leap forward in such a way that we'll be able to maximize our potential. So that marries itself to the whole idea of building a country away from taxation to production. There's no way you're going to achieve that if the NPP promised that. There's no way it's going to happen if we haven't intently invested in the productive elements of the economy. So why are taxes back up again? Because the same engine we've been using to run the economy is a centrally procured one, which is all for the show. So one this, one that, one this. But how well they are linked to the growth of the economy to ensure that the productive cycle continues, we can't see that. So education is good. You're spending so much on education right now, but to what end? Is it in 10 years we are going to build that critical core that we need in order to build a product? I'm mentioning just a few of these symptoms that have dogged our democracy that can never lift us off. And we are going to see this cyclical wave of protest until we fix the whole idea of sitting down and doing the hard work. If your manifesto is not necessarily, it's essentially a collection of, it's just a wish list, which is not rooted in the productive development of the economy, then you are going to see these challenges. I seriously think that these protests are good, but fundamentally, if we are going to fix the economy or fix the country, it has to do with a proper sense of, understanding what exactly plagues the economy. Unfortunately, maybe someone can also say that, well, then maybe the 4-year cycle is not enough if we want to fix democratic reforms, because the first year is virtually used in sorting out how a government tries to establish itself, tries to settle in. By the time it finishes the settling, elections are almost up. So maybe we should start asking hard questions as to what exactly we want to see in an economy such as ours, so that we can begin to have a conversation as to what are the main things that ought to be fixed. We don't want 250, 350 promises. We probably need 5. Fix the roads, fix education properly, by the way, fix water, fix healthcare. And the way to go about it is to have a decentralized system of administration, but where you pack a lot of things into these rather modest 5 top line, should I call them enablers, then you see the unraveling of our democracy. What do I mean? If we can achieve Agenda 111 by not having the government at the behest, at the commanding height of the health interventions, such that even procuring vaccines alone can make us lose close to $16 million by one bad decision. That money could have started fixing some other, issues within the healthcare. But I'm not even suggesting the government should do that. If the government were a productive enterprise, the private sector would be the ones actually engineering and directing affairs in every country. That's the way it's organized in every highly efficient country. We don't want to see, we understand government is the biggest spender, but so far, successive governments in this Fourth Republic, we've seen, if you are given a trial, if you are given a, a report card, you've seen that we spend so much pampering governments, in fact feeding governments, but we've gotten nothing out of it. You know how much between 2006 and 2014 was invested in the sports sector you've been complaining about? Almost $200 million. If you add 10 years from then, or probably 9 years from then, you are getting almost to $500 million. What have we achieved? 5 medals at the Olympics.
Thank you very much, Franklin Cudjoe. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll look quickly at the Sputnik report. Welcome back to the big issue, and let's just wrap up the show today with the report of the 9-member ad hoc parliamentary committee that was set up to probe the controversial Sputnik V vaccine procurement. Now, in their report, they have tasked the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to take steps to recover almost $3 million expended towards the botched procurement of several doses of the Sputnik V vaccine. Now, although the Health Minister, Kwekwa Dlamini, indicated that no money was paid to the company despite the initial 2,000 doses of the vaccine that was supplied, the report of the committee found that 50% of the total contract sum was actually paid, which is something Franklin was had suspected 2 weeks ago, that there was no way this deal had gone through without money being paid, contrary to what the minister said. So Franklin, as they say, take your stone. The committee also determined that agreements were entered into without prior approval by the Public Procurement Authority under sections 40 and 41 of Act 663. The minority in Parliament were represented in Parliament by the Chief Whip, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, who has called for the dismissal of the Health Minister. So we'll take a quick listen to that call, and then I'll read you portions of the committee's report, then we'll wrap it up.
To uphold the Constitution and the laws of our country. Mr. Speaker, for me, I must say the minister must be sanctioned. The minister must be removed by the president. He does not fit to occupy this office anymore. The Speaker, in affirming this, in order with Order 78D and Order 83, I want to beg and move an amendment to this motion, the report of the committee, to include on paragraph 12.4, now have paragraph 12.5, to include that the minister, and I ask, Mr. Speaker, adding this paragraph, that the minister not having lived up to his oath of office, he is not fit to occupy the office of the Minister of State and must therefore be removed from office henceforth, failing which this House must pass a vote of censure on the minister Mr. Speaker, I so move, and we on this side of this House are voting. We are calling for vote of no confidence on this minister. He does not fit to occupy this office, having betrayed the trust that the people of this country has mandated him with, having broken the constitution of our country, having broken the laws of our country. The Minister of Health does not fit to occupy this office. I therefore move for this amendment, and Mr. Speaker, in line with our Order 78D and 83, I beg that you put the question on this for it to be part of the report of this committee. And so move.
We are told that the minister made a categorical statement that no payments had been made to the suppliers, when in fact, upon further probing, they established that some payments had been made through the Minister of Finance, acting through the Controller and Accountant General. Some payments have been made to the suppliers. In fact, 50% of the costs had already been made. Now, is it the case that the minister made an emphatic statement? So I called the chairman and the vice chairman. They disagreed with what really happened at the committee level. So the committee clerk is then the person to call to authenticate the claim that the minister made an unambiguous statement that no payment had been made. When I called the secretary, the clerk to the committee, and she came, she said she doesn't really remember what exactly happened, but she will call for the recording. She did, and came to inform me in the presence of the chairman, the Honorable Afenyo, and the vice chairman, the Honorable Akando, that indeed the minister did not make a categorical statement, and that the minister said, to the best of his knowledge, no payment had been made. Indeed, before then, I had told the secretary that if indeed the minister made such a categorical statement that no payment had been made, and they discovered that indeed payment had been made, then they should put that in the report, that what the minister had said was inconsistent with their own finding. So accordingly, they put that in the report. But when the clerk came out with the admission that indeed the minister did not make any such categorical statement, the statement was qualified that to the best of his knowledge, no monies have been paid. In that case, would you say that the minister lied? Clearly no. So they then had, in the presence of the chairman and the vice chairman, the secretary then took out that portion from the report. So you look at the entirety of the report. The report is to make recommendations to Parliament as to what their findings are and what Parliament must do. If you look at the recommendations of the committee.
So that was the majority leader, Chairman Sabunsu, and the minority whip, Muntaka. Muntaka is asking for a vote of no confidence in the health minister. The majority leader seems to be going through a matter of semantics, what the minister said and what it means exactly, with reference to whether a categorical statement was made on amount of money paid. I think when he spoke, the whole country heard him. So, you know, but let me just read portions of the findings of the committee, and then, frankly, you can have a bit of comment, and then we'll wrap this up. So, if you go to this, it says, that's on point 10, findings of the committee. On non-compliance of Article 18.5 of the 1992 Constitution, the committee found that the procurement and supply of the Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccines between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Health, and the private office of His Highness Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum is an international agreement. The committee therefore took the considered view that the agreement qualifies as an international business or economic transaction, and the legal implication is that the agreement required a prior parliamentary approval to come into operation in accordance with Article 18.5 of the 1992 Constitution. The view of the committee aligns with the advice of the Honorable Minister for Justice and Attorney General in the ratio in the case of the Attorney General versus Balkan Energy Ghana Limited and others 2012. That case is quite popular. On 10-1, the committee found that SL Global was a Ghanaian incorporated company, hence the ministry's agreement with the firm did not qualify as an international business or economic transaction where parliamentary approval would be required. On procurement processes, the committee found that the Ministry of Health did not seek approval from the board of PPA under sections 40 and 41 of Act 663 before signing the agreement. The ministry, however, applied for ratification under section 93 of the Act, which has still not been granted. On 10-2, the committee also found that PPA has not concluded its investigations into the matter. On dealing with distributors, which is point 10-3, the committee found that the ministry dealt with the private office of His Highness Al Maktoum and SL Global. The two entities were appointed by the Urogulf Health Investment to be both agents and distributors of the Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccines in Ghana, clearly using middlemen for the purchase and distribution of the vaccine. Now, on the cost of the vaccine, the committee found that the amount of $19 was the agreed price of the vaccine under the ministry's agreement with Al Maktoum and $18.50 under the agreement with SL Global, which was originally $26 per dose. The committee found that the ex-factory price of the Sputnik V vaccine was $10. The minister explained that the prices achieved under the two agreements included the cost of documentation, shipping, packaging, logistics, and expenses in relation to transportation of the vaccine from its place of origin to Ghana. Decision to procure vaccines. The committee found that the ministry entered into the two agreements without cabinet approval, but only based on a ministerial decision, having regard to the advice of the COVID-19 Emergency Operating Committee. Now, on payments to Messrs. Al Maktoum, the committee found that the amount of $2.8 million, representing 50% of the contract sum of $5.7 million, has been paid to Messrs. Al Maktoum, and this translates into the cedi equivalent of 16.3 million Ghana cedis, converted at the then prevailing exchange rate of $1 to 5.73 cedis. Whereas the minister said he had no knowledge of payment under oath. Recommendations. Based on the aforementioned findings, the committee recommends as follows. 11.1. The committee is of the opinion that even if the situation in the country at the time the agreement was signed was that of an emergency, due process of law should have been followed because Parliament would have treated the issue with the urgency it deserved, and the appropriate action would have been taken accordingly. The agreement would have been taken under certificate of urgency in accordance with the standing orders and the practices of the House. 2. The point must also be made that even if it was an emergency, the minister should have found time to communicate effectively and engage with the Committee on Health. The extensive engagement would have saved the ministry from the negative reactions from the citizenry and some members of Parliament. 3. The committee therefore recommends that in future, any such transactions, whether local or international, be subjected to broader stakeholder consultations and should be taken through due process of law, including parliamentary approval. Other ministries, departments, and agencies should also take a cue from the recommendation, not only in the case of agreements, but also on issues relating to policies and programs to be implemented. Then I'll just go quickly to the conclusion so that Franklin can wrap up. The committee has discharged its mandate by diligently examining the two agreements. Then basically says that, as already stated, the committee found that the Ministry of Health did not comply with the requirements of Article 18.5 of the Constitution in respect of his agreement with Messrs. Al Maktoum. The minister said he did that because of the exigencies of the time when COVID-19 posed public health crisis with highest fatalities, and there was urgent global search for vaccines. At that material time, the agreements were signed. All government-to-government sources had failed, as the bilateral sources had communicated to the ministry that they would only be able to deliver in August 2021. Suffice to say that the bilateral sources did not include Russia, since Ghana had no such arrangements with Russia. So basically that is the conclusion part of it. But Franklin, overall, what do you make of this?
Politics.
Politics?
Well, how is it that some members of the minority are calling for the head and in no mean position as that of the minority chief whip, right? Is calling for the head of the minister when the overall committee's report actually suggests that, well, certain things were made in error and should not be repeated again. And I say it's politics because if you understood, I think the whole committee's work centers around the issues around procurement, which has been the bane in this society, right? So if the minister initially said, well, he hasn't paid any money.
Well, essentially, Mr. Bonsu says we have to figure out whether that was what exactly he said.
Oh, but his signs were all over the place, you recall? And I don't know whether that was also part of the not thinking properly process. But I think his signs were all over the place saying there's no money paid. But we knew from other contract arrangements with the Russians, I mean the middlemen who were trying to procure the Russian vaccine, that you have to pay something ahead. In this case, it was 50%. So is the minister the one saying that he is sorry, or is the committee saying that on his behalf? Interesting question. Which is why I say the whole conversation now centers around politics. The politics of either removing a minister of state. But again, this goes back to...
But do you get a sense of wrongdoing from what I've just read?
You know, it's a pretty difficult question to answer, because you see, then again, go back to the Fix the Country demonstrators' plea that the Constitution should be fixed. If the President, under the executive instrument, under the Certificate of Emergency, could issue some of these directives under which the minister clearly has taken refuge, or in which the minister has taken refuge, then somehow you cannot necessarily fault the minister, because he's saying that the constitutional mandate of the President gave me that authority, and in a pandemic situation, under the Certificate of Emergency, I did this. Whether it comes to say he wasn't thinking properly or not, probably does not, the matter does not, that does not really arise. So that's why I said there's a whole, it's politics, it's plain. People who are vested in the issues around property accountability and the fact that the procurement shenanigans that we know in this country will say, well, there's been one too many of these procurement infractions by the ministry. So how does this report and its conclusions and its recommendations actually absolve us from future infractions against the procurement system that we have? That's the challenge I have. And this I would throw back to the President. Is he satisfied with the work of the minister? Does he want to see further infractions of procurement? If he's happy, then maybe that's the path he's chosen.
But should it be a matter of whether the President is happy or not? An infraction is an infraction, and infractions are quite clear.
It's the person who appoints and fires, right? So it's the President. The call now is in the ball. In the court, the ball is in the court of the President, right? But the committee's report did not say he should be fired.
Yes.
Did it say?
It did not.
Well, but political conclusions, or should I say permutations, are such that the minority says he should be fired. I am only asking the President, is he happy with his health minister?
Okay. Interesting question from Franklin Cudjoe. And just a final message to wrap up. Good morning to you and your panelists. The Fix the Country protest is a wake-up call to politicians who hide behind Article 71 to enrich themselves and their cronies at the expense of poor ordinary Ghanaians. I suggest the leadership need to listen to Ghanaians and scrap Article 71 from our Constitution. Good morning to you and the host for the good work you are doing from our motherland, Ghana. Thank you to the Fix the Country group. I urge them to emphasize on the implementation of the Constitutional Review Commission's recommendations. There is nothing can be fixed if we still rely on the 1992 Constitution, which only favors politicians. This is Ezekiel from Kita. I guess this conversation around the 1992 Constitution will go on for quite a while, but this conversation must end. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Big Issue. Thank you to Franklin Cudjoe as well for passing through on another episode. We also thank our guests who joined us via Zoom. Join us next week for another episode of the program. Have a good weekend.